I'm recording our discussion here of On Laziness by Chris Morley. And for those of you fans of close analysis at home. Don't worry, those of you in witness protection programs, I'm not including anybody in class on camera, but this is our second period. And I'll change the names of the people, the students in the class, to protect the innocent, right? So we'll say,
just be careful.
Yeah, let's just be Chris.
all right, you can just be, what about famous authors? Okay. You can be like maybe Alice Walker or Joyce Carol Oates is a lovely lady. I actually had
Her
the
last
chance
name
to.
is Oates.
She writes Southern Gothic literature that's scary and beautiful and wonderful. Joyce Carol Oates. You know what? You got William Shakespeare. I bet you make a great Shakespeare. Lord Byron. Okay, we've got over here Toni Morrison. We've got over here Percy Shelley.
Wait, did you do Frankenstein?
Yeah, very good. Okay. We've got over here Anne Frank. Sorry about your luck. I'm sorry, that's kind of messed up. We'll give you somebody. We'll give you somebody else who's still
kicking it.
Still kicking it. Like I know why the cage bird sings is Maya Angelou. You'd be a Maya Angelou, and you can be Kurt Vonnegut, and you can be. You're already Percy Shelley. Okay, all right. So there we go. All right. So on laziness, yes, Mr. Delamar is crazy, and just in case you were wondering. All right. So we are looking at our. I wonder if it's better dark.
Probably better light.
There's plenty of light coming in here.
Yeah, but that's just from one window.
All right. Okay.
The other one.
All right, Lord Byron.
I was just trying to help.
Oh no!
It's too bright.
Sorry, you're innocent.
It's too bright.
You gotta let it. Okay.
Doesn't matter.
All right, we're just gonna try that. All right, we've already burned 5 minutes of video.
Oh no.
We already used up 5 minutes of tape. Back in the old days when we had to use tape, it meant something. Now digital just runs forever. All right, remember our formula. You're supposed to come up with a thesis. It even says at the top here, read the following essay by Chris Morley, written in 1920. Annotate using a graphic organizer, and come up with a thesis statement, and you're basically going to come up with an outline for what you would use, and you could use this on your timed writing for Friday, which incidentally, I'm using these time writings as your midterm. So you're going to get 100 on it if you submit one. I'm going to show you what the real rubric score is, but and I'm also going to combine that score with your crucible test tomorrow, so that'll be, it should be a win-win for everybody. But remember the formula. We're always looking at, I like to start out thinking about structure, right? Structure plus language equals purpose, right? And we need to identify all these things, not everything, because that's not the name of the game. It's just a matter of picking out the ones that we feel most confident about analyzing and tying back to our rhetorical situation and our rhetorical appeals, right? So, I'm just going to assume that Chris Morley's essay has some brand of introduction, a body, and a conclusion, right? Is it safe to say that?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so let's just kind of map it out. We can also anticipate that his thesis is stated somewhere in the beginning, close to the front. That doesn't mean that all thesis statements, I've read essays where it was anecdote, after anecdote, and then they never got around to stating their thesis until like almost the end, where the essay sort of talked its way into understanding. But in this case, it's not in the traditional last sentence of the first paragraph, but it is close to the beginning. Today we rather intended to write an essay on laziness, but were too indolent to do so. The sort of thing we had in mind to write would have been exceedingly persuasive. We intended to discourse a little in favor of a greater appreciation of indolence as a benign factor in human affairs. Okay? So he kind of gives us sort of his exigence, right? Intention to write a persuasive essay, right? Okay. What's his thesis?
It's our observation that every time we get into trouble, it's due to not have been lazy enough.
Yeah, it's every time we get into trouble, it's due to not having been lazy enough, right? We get into trouble because we're not lazy enough. I would like to see you sell this one to your parents, especially you fellas. Get up off the couch, put the video game away, and take out the trash. But Mom, Mr. Delmar said I get into trouble when I'm overly ambitious. I can see that going over really well for both of us. Okay, we get into trouble because we're not lazy enough. So obviously this kind of ties into our purpose a little bit here, right? Let's say his persuasive essay is due, and so this is what he ends up writing. Okay? So then he goes on. Look at that first paragraph. It is our observation. So he begins with this observation.
Oh, no.
And what is his first observation?
Every time we get into trouble, it's because we're not lazy enough.
Okay? And unhappily, we were born. I love these, none of these transitions he uses. Unhappily, we were born with a certain fund of energy. We have been hustling about for a number of years now, and it doesn't seem to get us anything but tribulation. And henceforward, why does he use this transition? I'm getting into some kind of nitpicky details here.
I'm saying like, this is why we are getting in trouble, and this is what we're gonna do to fix it.
Okay, all right, good. So this is what's happening, and here's what we're going to do henceforward. That means from now on, right? When was the last time you used the word henceforward?
Never.
Never. It's kind of archaic, isn't it? Got a little bit of archaic diction there. All right, I'm just kind of pointing out his use of word choice because there's something that I hope that you really pick up on here. We are determined to be more languid and demure. What do those words mean? Lazy. Demure is like, oh, you go ahead, I can't be bothered. It's like taciturn and aloof on top of laziness, right?
Yeah.
And then he says the man who is really thoroughly philosophically slothful.
Slothful.
philosophically, and that was a vocabulary word too, right? And philosophically slothful. Don't forget that sloth is one of the 7 deadly sins. But to be philosophically slothful, thoughtful about it, like you're a cheat. Yes, but I'm philosophical about it. Right? You are a fat, gluttonous pig. Yes, but I'm very thoughtful about the junk that I put in. You know, there's a method to my madness, right? Then he goes on, we remember a saying about the meek inheriting the earth. So then he moves from this observation to an illusion. Where does this illusion come from? The meek shall inherit the earth.
I don't know.
You never heard that before?
I feel like I have, it's so familiar.
You probably have and you don't remember where. It's a biblical illusion. Don't ask me. I could look up and tell you where it came from in the Bible, but I'm too lazy. Okay? And that's exactly what he's saying, right? He doesn't tell you where it comes from. I mean, he does that a couple of times. The truly meek man is the lazy man. He is too modest to believe that any what is that word? Any ferment and hubbub of his own ameliorate the earth and assuage the perplexity of humanity, right? The slothful is the only truly, thoroughly happy man. I think I should say, philosophically slothful man is the only truly happy man. Does that sound logical to you?
Yeah.
It does to you, but would your mom think that was, or your boss, or one of these people? Okay, so he also uses sort of like illogical rationale, or you could say a logical fallacy. It's like some faulty reasoning. Listen to these words that he uses: hubbub, and then ameliorate and assuage. Hubbub is like slang that your grandma probably used. Hubbub versus ameliorate and assuage. What have you started to notice about his vocabulary usage?
He's using more like words that, like more bigger words.
Big words, right? Okay.
More bigger.
I'm assuming there's a better word for that.
I can't
Yeah, I just.
Yeah, there is a better word. What's a better word for big?
Well, his vocabulary is very extensive.
Extensive vocabulary.
Great job, Tom.
Percy, what's your name?
Huh? Say what?
I was just saying him, good job.
Oh, Percy. Yeah.
I'm personally.
Go ahead, Percy. Okay. Yeah. It's advanced, right? It's formal, right? His tone. We're getting into his tone here, where it already sounds somewhat like serious, formal, scholarly almost, maybe. Then he gets into this, he makes an allusion, or O. Henry once said, so it's, here we got a quote from O. Henry. Anybody know who O. Henry is?
Nope.
He's a famous writer.
That explains a lot.
So bringing in another famous writer is kind of like bringing in a celebrity endorsement to sell your underwear. You know what I mean? I'm Fruit of the Loom. I want to sell some draws. Who am I going to get to do it? Michael Jordan's a face everybody recognizes. Do you think we could get Michael Jordan to wear our underwear? Sure. Who's gonna eat our cheeseburger to sell those things? Oh, let's get LeBron James. He's pretty famous right now. Didn't he just do something pretty crazy, like astounding? No, he just won the NBA championship, but you know, who can't do that, right? So, celebrity endorsements help to do what? Establish ethos. Oh, and he his vocabulary and his use of bringing in the big guns to back him up, because everybody cares what O. Henry says. O. Henry says that we should be careful to distinguish laziness from dignified repose. Alas, that was a mere quibble. Laziness is always dignified. It is always reposeful. Philosophical laziness, we mean, the kind of laziness. We have no respect for those who were born lazy, right? It is like being born a millionaire, right? Nobody respects somebody who was born and handed over hundreds of millions of dollars by their dad. There's no accomplishment in that. And, there was no way that you could not be rich, right? But, if you earned it from nothing, that's an accomplishment. Just like, think about if you were just born with this virtuosic ability to do some kind of art form, you walked out of the womb playing Mozart concertos on a violin. Is that as impressive as somebody who lost an arm and learned how to do it with their feet? That is impressive, right? Okay. I think we see the point. You ever see that guy that plays the guitar with his feet and doesn't have any arms?
Are you talking about
Now
the
that is
violin?
impressive, right? Well, I'm just talking about all kinds of stuff up here. Okay, and then he moves into this anecdote in his next body paragraph. The laziest man we know, we do not like to mention his name, probably because we can't remember it and we don't have time to look it up. But he goes into this anecdote about the guy who went on to, it's a queer thing, he said, sadly. No one ever comes to me asking for me to help them solve my problems. Next thing you know, everybody's writing him to help them solve their problems. And now he's so busy, he can't go back to his former lazy life, right? Historical illusions. Next paragraph, he talks about the Nazis, right? What do they have to do with anything about this? You could call this a historical illusion or an analogy. Think about all the misery in Europe that could have been spared if the Nazis weren't so bumptious. Nazis are, and I love this word, bumptious. Isn't that fun to say? Say it with me on the count of 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Bumptious. That's fun, isn't it? Okay, bumptious means basically, someone who is very motivated and self-assertive in a pompous kind of way, haughty and arrogant kind of way. Because let's just face the facts. It takes a certain amount of arrogance to sort of force your lifestyle on people to the extent that if you don't agree with me, I'm gonna kill you, right? That's never, and if they were more laissez-faire-ish, you guys know what laissez-faire means?
Yep.
What is laissez-faire style of government?
Like super laid back and they only do stuff when they have to.
Exactly. Okay. And then people respect laziness. That's kind of a very broad statement. People respect lazy people. That could be some more of that illogical rationale or a logical fallacy. Because that's sort of the antithesis of what we've always been taught.
Yeah, I said it's ironic, cause people usually respect hard work and determination.
It is, okay, so there's a sense of irony there. So so we can tell that part of his purpose is to be
Ironic.
satirical or satirical. And like, oh drat, who are you again?
Anne Frank.
And
No,
R.I.P.
no, she's not Anne
No,
Frank,
like-
she's, not Toni Morrison.
Something Lou.
Maya Angelou, yes, you're Maya Angelou. We have all these famous writers in here with us today. Okay, all right, so see how we're trying to always make these connections to our rhetorical situation? Then he ends up bringing in another sort of celebrity endorsement from this Dr. Johnson. And at the end, the assessment that he makes of Dr. Johnson's letter is that we see that sheer laziness led to the greatest triumph of Dr. Johnson's life. Sheer laziness equals greatest success. All right.
That's illogical.
All right, so also a bit ironic. So the speaker we see is humorous. Laughing is we're going to attract our audience that way. Who is our audience? I wonder. We get a little bit of humor can be labeled as pathos. Is there a logic to his ordering of things? As his argument continues and towards his conclusion, he kind of writes himself into a flourish, doesn't? Like his writing style flourishes. Contrasting with his thesis. Is his writing style lazy?
No.
Slovenly? Okay. No. It's the opposite. So he creates this sort of counterpoint where he's talking about how, much happier and productive you're going to be if you'll just be a little bit lazier. But his writing style, he uses all this beautiful vocabulary: tribulation, languid, demure, philosophically slothful, ameliorate, assuage. He brings in historical allusions. He brings in famous writers. He quotes the Bible. He's done his homework, although he, never, he leaves out a lot of the citations of who said what, because that would actually require looking them up, I guess. But, who is this audience? Who is this for?
People that do too much.
Okay.
Maybe.
Think about what it might, even though this was written in the 20s, think about how it might be applicable to those of us struggling in this 2020 madness that we're living in. You know what I mean? Think about how it might offer a message for someone who is anxious. We live in a society where here we are, we're already juggling our regular day-to-day anxieties, right? And then you throw in a global pandemic, and then there's this existential anxieties that political leaders are throwing at us because, oh my God, if I vote for this guy, the whole world's going to blow up, and if I vote for that guy, it's going to, you know, we're gonna drown, you know, fire or drowning in, you know, sea level rise. What's gonna happen? You know, so this existential crisis. So we're all juggling all this anxiety anyway. And so maybe we take from this, like, he sat down to write a funny, or he had an assignment to do, and instead he just had a little bit of fun. Don't you get the sense that he kind of enjoyed writing this? He was kind of having fun with language,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to create a contrast between what I'm writing about and how I approach it, right? It's kind of like writing, you know, a song like, "You are my sunshine, my only sunshine. You make me happy when skies are gray." But have you ever read the verses to that song? It's dark. It's all about this. She's left him, or somebody's left somebody, and their world is so hopeless. All the verses are just like oppressive sorrow about being left and lonely. And we think of that song as this sort of, there's this juxtaposition, right? You know, because it's all like, we think of it as like a happy song. We sing it in kindergarten. They don't teach them the verses for a reason, right? Because this song is depressing, you know? So there's this juxtaposition there. So what I want you to do is really think about what his purpose is. You know, is he really arguing that to be truly lazy is the way? Or is his purpose to create satire? And is it just satire at being funny for being funny's sake? Or is there something real message that he wants us to take into? What is the real message here? So I wonder if you can take structure plus language equals purpose and turn it into something real. Like Christopher Morley suggests that, satirically suggests that, you know, laziness is the path to success and happiness by using analogies and anecdotes and very descriptive word choice that is anything but lazy, right? That would be one way to approach it. Okay, you write one. You at home too. You write one. I've got all my famous writers in here: Shakespeare, Percy Shelley, Lord Byron's all up in the house, Maya Angelou, Anne Frank.
Oh my God.
Anne Frank has left the building. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. You guys rock. Keep up the good work.